Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. I'm Doug TenNapel. You found me. We are in exile. This is Doug in Exile, also known as. And I've been covering the Democrats' fear-mongering, scare tactics. You know, if they didn't have scare tactics, they'd have no tactics at all. This is on the Department of Education, and we're going to do the Lutnick on the economy. We're going to have some Shark Tank stuff. First, here's Linda McMahon, head of the Department of Education, on how President Trump's agenda is to close the Department of Education, which will, of course, cause all the liberals to freak out. For the children.
The Department of Education today told staffers to vacate their offices by 6 p.m. because the offices were closing nationwide. The doors are now locked. Workers aren't going to be allowed back into the buildings until at least Thursday. When they do return, it'll be a more cozier group.
So they had 4,400 employees. 2,200 of them were told they needed to leave the office and wouldn't be coming back.
Nearly half of the 4,100 workers are being cut in what the department is calling a reduction in force. President Trump addressed staff cuts in general today.
We want to cut people that aren't doing the job. We want to keep the right people. Absolutely. And I said, I don't want to just say we're going to cut 50%. I want to cut the people that aren't doing the job.
Joining me now, Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon. Madam Secretary, great to have you in studio today. Now, is this the first step on the road to a total shutdown?
Yes, actually it is, because that was the president's mandate. This directive to me clearly is to shut down the Department of Education, which we know we'll have to work with Congress, to get that accomplished.
She has to work with Congress to get it accomplished. So you can go in and try and cut things all you want. If the Congress are one of the ones that green-lit the Department of Education back under Jimmy Carter, then they have to be involved with it to shut it down. So this is there's no fear. No one's going to go out of step or out of line, chopping something out that they don't have the authority to chop out.
But what we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is bureaucratic bloat. And that's not to say that a lot of the folks, it's a humanitarian thing too. A lot of the folks that are there, they're out of a job. But we wanted to make sure that we kept all of the right people and the good people to make sure that the outward-facing programs, the grants, the appropriations that come from Congress, all of that are being met. And none of that's going to fall through the cracks.
So that was my next question. So the criteria for keeping that 50% is related to expenditures and key programs?
Correct. Congress appropriates the money that is going through Title I to IDEA programs.
What's that stand for?
Do you know what? I'm not sure I can tell you exactly what it stands for, except that it's the programs for disabled and needs.
Individuals with Disabilities Act, I think. Yeah. I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know all my acrograms. I've been here for 30 years.
This is my 5th day on the job, and I'm really trying to learn them very quickly.
Right. It's a lot. So reports today said that the buildings were going to be closed for security reasons. What does that mean? Well,
when people left today and they got their notification to take their laptops and their phones home with them, and we didn't want part of the people who were being permanently let go and those who are remaining to some of them show up to work tomorrow morning.
That's standard corporate practice.
So it's just standard corporate practice that we just locked the doors and said, for those that are coming back, we'll know that they'll be coming back on Thursday morning.
Were people given a chance to take any personal effects?
They were told that they will be allowed to come back. We would arrange for them to come back and take their personal effects with them and to say goodbye to some folks too.
Randy Weingarten, you're shocked. I know you two are catching dinner in about 20 minutes, but she actually commented about what's going on here. Watch.
Think about a country whose president basically says, I'm getting rid of education. What does that say about the future? So many people are so mad about it because they're just taking opportunity away from kids that don't have it. So kids of billionaires, they have it.
Your reaction?
Well, clearly we're not taking away education. The president never said that. He's taken the bureaucracy out of education. So
and who could fight that? Who can be against taking the bureaucracy out of education? We already did a video on that, where that was fear-mongering, saying they're taking away education. No, if anything, they're bringing education back. They're going to focus on education. Here is Kevin O'Leary backing her up, if anything, on merit and on grades. Who is to blame for the Department of Education bloat? It's unions.
Worked in the education system for 14 years. There's 110,000 high schools in America. Majority of them are in New York, Florida, Texas, and California. Our reading and math scores are the worst in the G7 and the G20 in terms of how many dollars we spend to advance our children.
Okay.
Why? Unions. Unions that keep mediocre teachers.
That guy on the left just gave a wince. He just gave a, what are you, look at him. What are you talking about? Unions? This is old news. Unions protect when they have people, teachers groping kids. The reason why they can't be fired is because of unions. If you have a new person come in, the reason why the new person who might be the best person on the job, the reason why that young teacher gets fired first if there's a budget cut is because of unions. The oldest, decrepit, incompetent teachers get to keep their jobs because it's not merit-based. It's like based on how seniority, how long have you been there? That's not merit. It should be tied to which kids are getting better grades, which kids are actually being educated better, being taught better.
Mediocre teachers in place in every high school in America when we should be firing them. You want to talk about whack as our theme tonight's show? I would like to fire teachers that don't wait. And I'd like to pay a lot more to the teachers that advance math and reading scores that push our system forward against every G7, G20 country. We have broken the system long ago through unions, and this is very unpopular.
But what are those cuts actually?
What it means is
impact
the lowest paid person in America that deserves a lot more money is a great teacher.
I agree. As a former
teacher. And we can't, in the system of unions in America, we keep mediocrity festering, destroying the issue.
Yeah, and they're bad. Anyone who's had a bad teacher, any administrator that tried to fire a bad teacher, even the bad teachers that are dating students, they can't get rid of. So now we're going to go into, does the government in general need reform? Here's Bernie Sanders from 2008. And this sounds like this is back when he was talking, March of 2008, talking against the second Bush term. But you'd think he was quoting Doge and Trump.
There is no question that there is an enormous amount of waste and fraud and abuse in this government. There is no question to my mind that Congress has not been vigilant enough in rooting out that waste and fraud to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. I would simply say that while it is absolutely appropriate to condemn the Congress, it is also important to note that we have an administration in this city, in Washington, D.C., and the function of an administration is to administer. And that means that when there is waste and fraud, you have an administration who should also be on top of that situation.
So there was never more waste, fraud, and abuse than under Biden. The only waste, fraud, and abuse right now that's under Trump, it's only growing because the waste, fraud, and abuse just always by default grows. That's what waste, fraud, and abuse does. It protects itself. It produces no real product and then just lives like a leech off the good work of others. And the reason why I bring up Bernie Sanders is I like when Democrats make our case, because this is not waste, fraud, and abuse. It's an equal opportunity employer. It will work under Republicans and Democrats. And right now, I think the Trump administration, MAGA, not old school Republicans, but MAGA Republicans feel like they have a mandate to reform things. And they're facing resistance, of course, first from the structure they're trying to reform, because the job, like I said, of these bloated bureaucracies, as Linda McMahon said in that first clip, some of these teachers, they're administrators in education with the best of intention. It's their calling, but you're not helping education. So you have to be fired. I know you're good, but you have to be fired because though you're good, the kids' grades are not going up. So I got nothing for you. So that's true for Democrats, Republicans. I'm not just dancing on Democrat bureaucrats' graves. Some Republican bureaucrats are going to be gone. Christian bureaucrats, even pro-education bureaucrats, they're going to lose their job. Why? Because the government is funding the biggest grift. About at least half of our government right now is fake and corrupt and expensive, and you and I are paying for it, and it gotta go. Now, Here's Howard Lutnick. I'm just going to show you this guy's Twitter just to give you an introduction, because most of us have seen him before. This is one of Trump's financial guys, the guy that's really behind the tariffs. So all the rhinos hate him. All of the Democrats hate him. Anyone who hates tariffs hate him. Howard Lutnick, he's the 41st United States Secretary of Commerce. Let's go to Lutnick on the tariffs as Lutnick is interrogated by CBS News.
But it sounds like you're saying, trust us. And are you worried that at some point Americans are going to feel like there's a bunch of billionaires in Washington who are playing Russian roulette with our retirement?
$2 trillion deficits don't bother you at all.
I'm just saying I love him. $2 trillion deficits don't bother you at all. This is what I mean by the outrageous, immoral amount of debt that we have, which was all lied about all along for the last 40 years. Every president, right? When you borrow money that you don't have, when you print money, borrow money that you can't pay for, you're not doing your job as an administrator. This is going to go back to the Bernie Sanders quote. An administration administrates. And if your administration can't pay for its budget, then all Congress did was vote to increase the debt. Printed money. Now that's what Ron Paul and Rand Paul too, but Rand Paul and Thomas Massey are arguing about with the CR, with the continued resolution is they just go, you know what? We're just still printing money. Trump himself in between 2016 and 2020 raised the debt. And then Biden just went off like a French whore on the debt. It's like the debt went through the roof. We're getting close to $40 trillion. We are on the brink of going insolvent. And look, it's just money. I don't care if we go insolvent. Fine. Let America economically collapse. We'll all go into a great recession. I'll have to take the fence posts out of my fence to burn them for fuel to keep my family warm because there'll be no electricity. I won't be able to pay electricity. We'll have to grow our victory gardens. I have a garden right out there. We'll have to grow our own food. We'll all get really skinny. No electricity, no benefits. I'm okay with that if that's the truth. And that's what's about to become the truth if someone doesn't do something about the economy. Now, Lutnick here is going to the CBS lady. You're all freaking out about tariffs, which is just a tax on, on all imports, right? It's a tax on other countries coming in and wanting to do business with us when we're the number one financial mechanism. We're the engine of the entire world. Zimbabwe is not making product that is profitable. It's not a functioning society. France isn't even a functioning society. They can't pay for themselves. We're also intertwined with this global thing. And now all Lutnick is saying is, you're not freaked out enough about the $2 trillion. You're coming in at this little tiny tariff thing he's proposing, some weird esoteric experimental thing, which I'm all for, given what the lack of tariffs have gotten us so far. How's it working for you? The non-MAGA plan, let's not break the furniture. Let's not let the bull loose in the China shop and break everything. Let's sustain what we've been doing for 40 years. Let's protect this system of corruption and debt and just keep racking that debt up when you can't pay for it. Even if it's entitlements like Social Security, Medicaid, just keep making the grandkids pay for it. You guys, you'll figure it out one day, but you cut one of our benefits, you all pay for it.
How could you ask me while we're running a $2 trillion deficit and not care? You're destroying the people who have run this country before, are destroying the future for my children and my children's children. I can't have a 50, 75. We have a $36 trillion deficit. And we used to run deficits of 400 billion. Now 2 trillion, everybody's like, who cares? I tell you what, who cares? Donald Trump cares. And when we balance the budget, you know what that means? That means our deficits stop. Interest rates come smashing down. His goal is to have external revenue. The way I think about it, we all are so used to paying taxes. We're so used to it. We have like Stockholm syndrome. Don't stop the Internal Revenue Service, God forbid. How about this? The rest of the world leans on our economy, breathes off our economy. Not only is our economy $29 trillion GDP, but we consume $20 trillion a year. We are the buyer of everybody's stuff. We buy everybody's stuff. So who's more important, the people who sell stuff or the people who buy stuff?
I don't know anything about economics, okay? I'm a barely literate comic book artist, but that sure makes sense to me. Americans, we're the number one consumer. We're buying everything. And when you see what they're doing with our government, with USAID, all these different departments, all this funding around the world, our tax dollars, you and I pay for it through our taxes. They're washing our money all around the world, and we buy their products. Pick up any product made in China, made in Japan, made in Germany, made in Canada. We fund it. Our economy, rooted in a free market, rooted in God-given Christian freedom. We're paying for it all. And then we don't get a benefit, as if our system of government is just one of many. It's just one of many. Well, why are we the economic buyer, the engine of the world? If we're not buying your product, your country is practically dead. You know what I mean? Even Saudi Arabia, there aren't enough people in Saudi Arabia to drive cars for them to sustain themselves. But they sell oil to everyone around the world. And of course, America, Gavin Newsom, Biden administration, they won't let us drill for oil here. We're sitting on the largest black gold oil reserves in the world, and natural gas. They won't let you drill for it. They don't even want us to export the fuel that everyone's using. So I really dig this Lutnick guy. I like the way he's thinking here, and I think he's making a good case for tariffs. There's better news, though. Wait till you hear Trump's ultimate agenda. I totally agree with.
So we are the buyer of everybody's commodities, products, goods and services. Everything comes from us, right? Let them pay a membership fee. We all understand that model. Let them pay. How about we, you and I, and every single person we know pay less? How about no tax on tips? How about no tax on overtime? How about no Social Security? How about all those things? These are the kind of thoughts that will change America. I know what his goal is. No tax for anybody who makes less than $150,000 a year. That's his goal.
No tax for anybody making less than $100,000 a year. For that alone, Trump, he should get the Nobel Peace Prize, but it should be like considered, he will be the greatest president in American history since, I would say, Lincoln and Washington, if he can pull that off. No tax for people making, think about that, for you and I to pay no national federal tax. And then you make other countries pay for it with tariffs, which is, of course, is how this whole thing started back at the beginning of the country. You didn't have it. Our income tax came about through the wars that we had to fund, and they had to do, and they were emergency measures for you and I to pay an income tax to the federal government. They were emergency measures during wartime, and then they did not cut them. They just kept them. Good news is coming. Change is coming. It is going to be painful, and I'm ready to weather it. How about you? Are you willing to take the risk? Given you're going to lose everything. If they don't make the change, 100%, you're going to lose everything. So why not take a chance? Maybe we'll just lose a little something in the short term. I'm Doug in exile.